I'm Dr. Sarita, and I would like to talk with you about my education around food. So, of course, Old MacDonald had a farm. When I was a little child, we had play farms, and I had a Fisher Price farm, much like this. And I love thrift shopping and old toys and things. And I was thinking about messages in my childhood. So I was taught by my great grandparents that, you know, grease is goodness, and if you eat too much bread and potatoes, you'll get fat and sick. I was taught not to snack. I was taught, have courses with the meal, have soup when you begin a meal, have sauerkraut, have pickled vegetables. And this came from the, Eastern European heritage that I got exposed to when I was a child. I'm so blessed that I got to know one set of great-grandparents. Some people never get to know their great-grandparents. However, this knowledge that this childhood knowledge that I had was in conflict with this other movement, which was the food pyramid. And this was brought out in my third grade classroom, and I was taught to snack. I was taught to have fruit all day. I was taught to have lots of bread and pasta. I was taught meat is bad, butter is bad, skin on the chicken is bad. It's better to put it in shake and bake and put the chicken in chemicals. Sugar was fine as long as it's part of whole grain pastas and breads, and it took my roots away. My roots, I had roots in the ancestral tradition that I was being educated in with my great-grandparents and my grandmother. But then it was kind of like poisoned. And my mother was a career woman. She did the best she could. And then she said, they're fools. They're eating all this fat and there's grease and we shouldn't eat like that. We need to take the skin off the chicken. We need to put it in shake and bake. Everything we have is low fat. We have SnackWells. We have breakfast cereal. We have orange juice. And I never questioned this. I never questioned this. I thought this was an education, but it was actually an indoctrination, because this was based on lies and corporate interest in disguise. It wasn't based on health. And I invite you to listen to Pradeep Jamnadas and Jason Fung and Eric Berg about where this came from. They really do an excellent job on this and really opened my eyes. It's like I kept thinking, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why can't I lose this weight? And my map was broken. Again, I was indoctrinated. But I think this is why it's so important that old people lose their filters. Well, they don't make our filters anymore. They're broken. I'm 56. I'm still 6 years old in my head, and I want all the cookies and pastas and cakes. I want all that in my limbic brain. But my discernment now, I'm 56 years old, and if I want to live, I've got to ask myself every time I eat, how does this food affect my blood sugar level? And it's about 2 p.m, I went out to a dinner the other day, and I ate a lot. I really ate a lot. It was good quality food, wonderful company, but there has to be a feast and fast element. And I have just had black coffee with some cinnamon this morning, and my blood sugar is 85. I was pre-diabetic. I am now regaining my metabolic flexibility. And again, your metabolism is kind of like a muscle. It gets stronger the more you use it properly. And I was abusing my metabolism in eating the 6 times a day, high carb, low fat. I was being taught to eat like a cow when I am really more like a bear. And you think about anybody's ancestors, no matter where they came from, and I have some Scandinavian heritage, and I think, these folks feasted and they fasted. They had fatty fish. They had all kinds of, ancestral traditions evolved to the land where they lived, and they had winter, and they needed to store the fat for the winter. And all these traditions developed wherever they lived. And, I love that the book French Women Don't Get Fat. I remember reading that 20 years ago, came out in the early 2000s, and then rereading it recently. And the author of French Women Don't Get Fat does have some really, she talks about French women didn't abandon their ancestral traditions. French women ate fat. French women ate butter. They ate good quality. They were not going for the food pyramid thing that we did in the United States. They realized that these roots are health, and really these roots of how to feed a family are so important. I was talking with a dear colleague whose mother was a home economist. She was a home economics teacher. And she said how her mother was throwing out her old cookbooks because this came in the 1970s. This started rolling out in full force in the United States. And we were taught that vegetable oil was better than butter. We were taught, all our ancestral recipes had too much fat and had to be redone. And what a tragedy. There was nothing wrong with these ancestral recipes. They were not based, this was not based on science. So again, you can ignore a lie, but you cannot ignore the consequences of a lie. So basically, we were lied to about that this was healthy. 30 years later, we've done the experiment, and 2 out of 3 of us are either pre-diabetic or diabetic in the United States. So this has been a failed experiment. We need to flip this on its head, do the opposite. Remember Seinfeld, if it isn't working, do the opposite. This wasn't working for me. So I needed to do the opposite. And I love this book, 2 Meals a Day is great. So home economists were so important. And my friend's mother was saying, it was just becoming devalued. People were like, have shake and bake, have, just have mac and cheese, hamburger helper. Women don't need to know how to cook. Just follow this food pyramid stuff, SnackWells, low fat, everything. And it's just so sad. My dear children who are in their 20s got 0 home economics education. I got some home economics education in the 80s, but again, it was just getting so devalued. And this is freedom, and this is empowerment to be able to cook. And it also saves you a lot of money, but it does take time. And women, 50 years ago had more time. Every generation, we're getting more disconnected from our traditions. But I think that's also a wonderful thing of YouTube. I can look up, I can look up recipes, and I know how my great-grandparents looked and how they ate. And I have the home movies to prove it. When I think there's something wrong with me, I have their genes. If it's all genetic, well, then how come they didn't get diabetes in the 1950s and I'm getting diabetes in my 50s? How come if it's all genetic, well, then it's got to work the other way. I would challenge you to go back through your old photo albums, look at people, and even watch old movies. Watch movies from the 1950s, from the 1940s. Look at how people looked and how they ate. And those movie stars in those films, they look like people in the high school yearbooks. You look at the disconnect between the average American person walking around in a shopping mall versus the Hollywood celebrities, and they do not look the same. They do not eat the same. And I'm not a celebrity. I was also thinking about it. I don't want advice from celebrities. I want advice from people who are working in the real world. I want advice from people who are older, because, as you get older, you just cannot, I like, this is an old guy and he looks darn good. And I'm classic and vintage myself. In my head, I'm 6, but I am 56. And I'm learning and I'm rediscovering, and there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. It's what's wrong with we've been through, and we've been gaslit around food. But really the most important thing is, how does this food affect my insulin level? And it's downstream from my blood glucose. So basically, don't fear the fat. Ancestral fats are good. Butter, ghee, highest quality meat you can get. The olive oil, salmon, there's saturated fat in every tradition, and saturated fat is good. And I'm eating like my ancestors. I have the same genes. I want to look like my ancestors. Control the carbs. The bread of today is not the bread of my ancestors. This bread is a Twinkie. It never goes stale. It's filled with seed oils. It never goes stale. My colleague said, well, I wanted the bread that never goes stale. I had no time to shop. But the cost is our health. What else? Control the carbs. Be positive on the protein. Eggs, cheese, fatty fish. These things have protein. Protein comes packaged with fats. Don't fear the fat. And I welcome you to like, comment, subscribe. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for your attention. And I'm Dr. Sarita, question everything behind weight loss. Hope to see you in the next video.